I titled this video, "It's the End of the World as We Know It." It's the title of an R.E.M. song from 1987 that I thought somehow was going to be appropriate. I know it sounds dramatic, like, woo, he's being so fatalistic and dramatic. But in a sense, I thought it was appropriate for what I was going to be talking about. You see, I studied the Bible very deeply, and I watch culture closely. And I wanted to share some of my observations with you today. It's sort of like a State of the Union address, except it's not just political mumbo jumbo. It's what I'm seeing going on in the culture. This time it framed up in a chart for me, and I will put this chart on the video so that you can see what I'm talking about as what I observe is going on right now, and then I'd love for you to talk about it with me in the comments afterwards. First of all, I see that there are three, what I see are main categories of things that are working to, I would call, destroy America right now, and I want to review each of those things. The first one is technology. The technology, primarily what's going on with AI, and I don't know if you've been watching the news, but Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak and a bunch of other tech guys are demanding a pause in artificial intelligence research and applications because of the dangers they've seen. They think that certain kinks need to be worked out or certain safeguards need to be put in because they see that it's dangerous. I've watched a couple videos in the last couple days and weeks that show that AI is lying to people, that AI is manipulating people deliberately. And if AI can lie to us and manipulate us, then we can never trust it that we're getting any kind of good information or that we are even safe. And that's what people are talking about. There is one group of people that are saying that they are certain that AI either could or is going to kill us all. That's going to kill off humanity. And so that's what I'm saying, as far as destroying America, technology is working. That's one thing that's huge in the news. The second thing I have written that is huge in the news is ideology. There are certain ideologies that are very popular and growing in America right now that are dangerous to America as we know it. They are things like, some of the leftist ideology that just seems to want to tear America down. You see it coming from people like George Soros, but you also see it coming from even politicians and businessmen. There's this leftist, this woke ideology that's very dangerous to us. Socialism, the growth of socialism, even in our own government, where we should be more socialist. And of course, that's not America at all. There seems to be this concerted effort right now to bring down America as a constitutional republic and as a democratic capitalist society. And we just see those trends right now. It's also in things like CRT, which is critical race theory, DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And of course, diversity, equity, inclusion includes all kinds of things, but certainly not Christianity. And also ESG, which is environmental, social, and government, which is like a social credit score, a social score. All of these things are having very deleterious effects on American culture and are actually designed to change the way America is. It would be the end of the world as we know it. I also see in the ideology what we're seeing, this sudden explosion, like over the past few months, even though it's been happening for decades, this sudden explosion over the last couple months about transgenderism and transgender superiority and transgender priority, and also all the things that are like with drag shows for children, drag shows for babies, drag shows in the schools, drag shows in the country music awards. What is going on? All of a sudden, they are changing America in dramatic ways. The third column here, besides technology and ideology, the third column is military. And what's happening military? Obviously, at the top of this column is China. What's happening in China with America, again, there have been dramatic changes in the last couple of years. The former Defense Secretary Mark Esper says that China is the greatest strategic threat to the United States in the 21st century. General Jack Keane has said the U.S. has never in history seen a threat like China in all of its history. A four-star Air Force general named Mike Minihan predicts that the United States will be at war with China by 2025. CIA Director William Burns says that Xi Jinping has directed his military to be ready for assault operations against Taiwan by 2027. Of course, that's the trigger that will bring America into war with China. But the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, has set up defense mobilization site offices across the country of China. China is forming more economic ties in Latin America and South America to gain a military foothold on the Western continent. Military rocket launches for satellites from China have more than quadrupled over the past decade. China is practicing amphibious assaults. China is heavily subsidizing U.S. universities. They are a large owner of American farmland. They own American companies. The military threat of China to the United States is growing by leaps and bounds just about every day. And we also know that Russia and China have been getting pretty chummy lately and forming various economic pacts, and who knows if military pacts, along with Iran and Saudi Arabia, to the point where some might say this is a scary situation, that China is gearing up for war with the United States, and they are capable of it. So we are watching that pretty closely. So all of these things, this technology and ideology and military, that all seem to be aiming at destroying America, certainly as we know it, and possibly, period, destroying America, as well as destroying other parts of the world. Now, but along with this, what we're finding that, maybe these pressures always were happening, but there was always an undergirding where American society was strong. American technology, American industry, and American morality were all strong enough to be able to support the weight of these efforts against America. But as far as I'm seeing, that's not the case anymore. As far as technology is concerned, America has a technological vulnerability because we know that China has been stealing our tech for decades. We also know that our government, our own government, has been using tech. Our businesses have been using tech to surveil us, to manipulate us in ways that are so shocking. They are similar to what we read in 1984 by George Orwell. We've read that the FBI and the DOJ, the Department of Justice, are weaponized, that they are using technology. It's a bit of a scary situation, but it takes that America's undergirding is not as strong as it used to be because technology is being used against us, and it has weakened us. Under this column of ideology, what we see in exchange is that there is a moral weakness that's in America. Secular humanism has been making tremendous strides in the last number of decades, but even more so recently. And leftist ideology and atheism are weakening morals and weakening Christianity in America. And so we don't have the moral undergirding that we used to have to be able to withstand the ideological and moral oppression that's in America. And then as far as military, well, what about our military strength? But there's quite a bit of military weakness that we have to recognize. First of all, what I would call the Ukraine drain, by statistics that I read in Google, $13 billion of munitions and military equipment have been sent to Ukraine, which means they're not here anymore. They're not here in case we need them to defend ourselves. Also, depending on what you read, anywhere from $18 billion to maybe $80 billion of military equipment and ammunition that were left in Afghanistan. And so that means it's not here anymore in case we need to defend ourselves. In other words, our weapons stockpiles are dangerously low. We know that the Biden administration has drained our fuel reserve to precipitously low levels. I've read in a number of places that our fuel reserve is lower than it's been in decades, just when we might need it to defend ourselves. We know that thousands of troops were discharged from the military because they refused to get the vaccine, so that our military ranks are low. Also, that Biden just proposed to shrink our number of Navy ships. While China is increasing the number of their Navy ships, this administration is voting to shrink our number of Navy ships. Wokeness policies in the military have compromised our combat readiness. Our military recruitment is in decline. I was reading an article the other day that our military was 25% lower in its recruitment rate than it has been in recent years. We know that many young Americans are woke. They don't like America. They certainly wouldn't support it in a time of war. They, as far as I can tell, they would cheer its demise. And so it's not like it was, say, in World War II, where young people, when there was a military occasion, they signed up by the millions, hundreds of thousands. But, that probably isn't going to happen now. We know that our southern border is in chaos with the illegal entry of non-citizens who wouldn't defend America. It's not their country. They have no particular obligations to it. There are reports that Chinese nationals are flowing across our southern border into the United States, very possibly as spies. All of this is going on, and so while all this danger to America happening in technology and ideology and military, but then we don't have the undergirding to withstand that as far as technology, as far as morality, and as far as military speaking. At the same time, at the bottom, when I first made the chart, I had the church down here, that the church is under the beginning stages of persecution in America. But I took it away from there and I put it in the corner. I put it in the corner because Christians are being so marginalized and so repudiated that the church is shrinking, and the Freedom from Religion Foundation is suing Christian things and Christian organizations and churches and Christian displays all over the place. The LGBTQ has been suing and putting Christians out of jobs, putting Christians out of business, getting Christians fired from jobs. We know half the church is apostate anyway. And so even the church is not only weak and not able to help support America, the church has been pushed into a corner where they are virtually marginalized and, of little cultural effect anymore. So that's my analysis of what's going on right now. And it's, some would say it's a scary thing. Some would say, wow, that's quite a bit of oppression. Now the thing I want to share with you, I want to share with you, is that I did this same thing 3 years ago. Something, I don't know what triggers it in me, that I have this sort of grand scheme of culture analysis. But at the time, 3 years ago, which was in June of 2020, of course, we were in the throes of a pandemic at the time. But what I was seeing when I analyzed the culture was this effort towards the Islamification of America, scientism, certainly LGBTQ, which has been there. But there was so much talk in certain circles about the new world order, about globalism, about control, about fascism, about police state. Something I was noticing was the Roman Catholic Church's part and what they were being accused of, again, as far as the New World Order and the one world government. And I was also observing what was happening in the media. And so there was this spirit of secularism, there was this spirit of fascism, certainly of the Islamification of America, the media as instruments of deceit, big pharma as instruments of manipulation and of control. We were talking in 2020 about Bill Gates, about George Soros, about science and big pharma. At the time, yes, China was a danger. Iran was saber rattling against Israel. And, when I put this all together, Bill Gates and George Soros, Anthony Fauci, the things that we'll be saying about them, Islam, China, LGBTQ, scientism, the leftist media, and, all of what was building up then. So I take all of that and I put that together with this that I was doing today, and I notice that almost everything on this list is new and was not there 3 years ago. That's how much things have changed. Think about what has happened in AI in the last couple of years. Not only that, but digital ID, digital currency. Those were hardly on the radar 3 years ago. As far as the ideology, CRT, DEI, ESG, that was not on the radar 3 years ago. All of what's happening with transgenderism and the sudden explosion of drag, the drag arts, that was not there 3 years ago. Militarily, yes, China, but things have escalated dramatically since 3 years ago. This is a huge difference from what I was seeing 3 years ago. This stuff was not on the list. The technology that we're seeing happen now, that was not on the list. The weaknesses that have come to our military, certainly the conflict in Ukraine was not on the list. The withdrawal from Afghanistan was not on the list. The fuel reserves were still high. When I look at the difference as to what has happened in 3 years, there's been a massive cultural, moral, technological, ideological, military change. Massive changes. So, now that I've shared all that with you, you're probably asking, so what do I make of this? What do I see that's going on? So what I see going on is that the risk factor, the degree of danger here has increased exponentially. In 3 years, there's a dramatic difference. It's not like any of the stuff from 3 years ago has gone away, but what we have put on top of it in the last 3 years just takes the danger zone and pushes it way up here. This is the danger zone now. And at the same time, our resources to battle it and cope with it or sustain it has decreased dramatically, so that now we're living in this kind of world. In other words, we are in a very dangerous situation, and it does not look like it will end well or happily. It may be the first pieces of the end of the world as we know it. At the same time, I can say that Christians are paying a price, and that will also increase. The church is in decline and will continue to decline, and Christians are going to suffer. The future is not bright for Christians in America, let alone around the world. America is going to be an increasingly dangerous place to be a Christian. Okay, I've shoved out my thoughts. I'm really curious to talk to you about it in the comments below. Write to me and give me your opinions, and let's talk about it.